Testing, testing. We are live.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Lisa Decker and I am your host today. I am the founder of Divorcetown USA and DivorceMoneyMatters.com. And I can tell you, as a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst who's been at this work for nearly 14 years, protection is a big part of what we try to help folks with to make sure that what you think you're going to get in the divorce process is going to happen for you after, and that anything that you may be expecting to get later on after the divorce is over, like alimony or child support, is protected as well. And today it is my great honor to have several members of our Divorcetown community speaking to you about various ways that you can protect yourself. And first up, we have, put those glasses on so I can read this information to you. We have Bob Smith, and Bob and I have known each other for quite some time, and he is a licensed insurance agent in the state of Georgia. And Bob, you can tell us if you are also helping in other states. Bob Cares is his company name, and he has a focus on helping individuals since 2009 eliminate the worry, fear, and confusion of choosing health coverage options. And I can tell you that is very confusing with all that's going on out there. This is very timely because we've got signups coming up for a lot of those of us out there who are ready to get new health insurance coverage for the coming year. So Bob is going to speak about why and when health insurance is essential. Take it away, Bob.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. And it's a pleasure to be here today. Health insurance, as Lisa said, I've been an agent since 2009. I'm an agent in Georgia as well as South Carolina. And I have to say, health insurance is complicated. It's like the sands under your feet shifting. Things constantly change. So what I hope to accomplish today, this afternoon, in the time allotted, is to provide an overview of the options that are available. I'm engaged in Medicare, Obamacare, healthcare, and we'll just touch on a few of those items. So I think the important component for a lot of folks is COBRA. Stands for Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. It was passed in 1985. And in light of somebody losing their health insurance, and in this conversation, maybe because of a divorce or a legal separation, being able to keep the coverage that you have now, the employer coverage, might be something that would be very important. There's certain numbers that you should be aware of. One, COBRA is not offered to everybody. If a company has less than 20 employees, COBRA might not be an option. And 60 is a number where you would have to notify the plan administrator of a life event to qualify to get COBRA. But COBRA can be very expensive. So another thing to think about is, I'll say, the Affordable Care Act. Now, I love the words that Congress comes up with to define their acts. I've been certified on the marketplace since it was implemented in 2014. Hard to believe that the law was passed in 2010. Here we are in 2021, still talking about the benefits, of the Affordable Care Act. And for a lot of people, though, it's an option, but it's also maybe too expensive. So one thing about the Affordable Care Act that's very important and that I appreciate is there's no pre-existing condition exclusion. So if there is a serious pre-existing condition, God forbid, cancer, heart attack in the last 5 or so years, you can't be declined for the coverage. That's a good thing. Second good thing is based upon income. That when you file the tax report, what the amount of your earnings are in a year's time can qualify you for a subsidy. And I can't begin to tell you how many folks I work with that are getting a subsidy of over $1,000 a month, and their insurance is costing in the hundreds, sometimes in the teens. So the Affordable Care Act is a second option that should be considered. And certainly divorce or legal separation is a qualifying event for an Affordable Care Act. It's a special election period. It can be gotten outside of open enrollment. I put here just a chart to show, based upon the numbers in a family, the amounts of income that would generate a subsidy. So this is from 2020. It's changed a little bit, but I work with my clients, and we figure what their income, guesstimate will be, what their tax filing will be, and we come up with if they are going to qualify for a subsidy. The one drawback a lot of people find with the Affordable Care Act is that the plans are HMOs, and a doctor might not be in the plan. That so that might be a reason that choosing an ACA plan is not the way to go. Healthcare.gov is the resource to get a lot of information about the Affordable Care Act. Healthcare.gov, and I'll say an agent, because when it comes time to picking a plan, that's where the complexity arises. And knowing that an agent typically doesn't charge for their services makes more sense to outsource the selection process to an agent. So open enrollment, like Lisa said, open enrollment is upon us. Seems each year open enrollment appears sooner and sooner. I recently wrote an article, and I said the same thing. The riddle, what's the same between Halloween and annual open enrollment? Well, they both appear sooner and sooner. Candy on the shelves, people soliciting us for their business in open enrollment. So health plans, the Affordable Care Act, outside of a special election period, have open enrollments, but plans that are not on the marketplace, not at healthcare.gov, those plans we call indemnity plans. And those plans there are no open enrollments. Those plans are offered throughout the year. And there's different types. What we call short-term plans, which is really a misnomer, because short-term now can be a 3-year period. Used to be 3 months. It was changed. So there are plans that we call short-term. There are plans that we call fixed benefit plans. There are plans that we call indemnity plans. But again, these plans have no open enrollment. They're PPOs. So oftentimes it's very hard to find a doctor that doesn't accept the plans. All right, I like to show this picture because health insurance is important, but it doesn't cover everything. And when I think of all the people that I've worked with that unfortunately have been confronted by the unexpected of a diagnosis of cancer, a heart attack, a stroke, that's where ancillary benefits come in. Sort of like the duck, the Aflac duck. That is a type of ancillary benefits. So cancer, as I said, critical illness, accident, hospital indemnity. This is how an agent can screen and shield their clients from the risk of out-of-pocket expenses. So an agent really is an arm of the individual, and outsourcing, like I said, to somebody who is more aware of the different options is a viable option. Trust and a belief that the agent is there to help is key. I have to say that representing a variety of the major carriers, my job is to represent my clients. Certainly when it comes to Medicare, agents are compensated for the same, no matter what plan they suggest, be it Humana, Aetna, Cigna, what have you. So my goal is to do what I can for my clients. And as I'm showing here, I don't, I see my misspelled assets. Well, life is a learning experience. We'll change that, but that's what I do. I protect my clients for their health, their wealth, and their assets. And more information about me can be found at bobcaresforyou.com. My website is there. My phone number is there. I don't charge a fee. I really do care what I do. And quite frankly, I'm blessed. I wake up each morning. I know I can help somebody. And my phone is always on, whether I'm traveling, I'm as far away as my phone. So I like what I do. I have a passion for what I do. And I'm glad that I'm able to help folks. I will say in another life, I was in the candy business. I was with the manufacturer of Now and Later candies. When I was with Now and Later, I traveled the country. I wanted everybody to eat and enjoy the candy. Well, now I sell health insurance. Quite frankly, I don't want anybody to need what I sell, but I want them to have it if they need it. And that's really the bottom line. Best health insurance is the one you don't need, but unfortunately, bad things happen to good people.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. And, personally, I will tell you that Bob has helped me with insurance matters, and I'm very grateful to him for that, especially after having gone through cancer a second time in my life last year. And with Bob's help, I was able to get, really great coverage and take care of the things that I needed, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, Bob. You've always been a terrific resource for me and for those that I've referred you to, and we're grateful to have you as a part of our community. By the way, you are very welcome. And I also wanted to mention, I'm not sure if I heard you mention this, but typically with COBRA, for anyone who's lost a job, it's an 18-month period that you can get coverage for, but for divorce, it's 36 months. And so, we don't tend to see COBRA used a lot, but there have been instances where it's been a lifeline for people. So it's good to know that that is an extension that you can get in that case.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob. All right, let's see who is up next here. And next we have Tammy Gruen, and she's a financial advisor at Raymond James and Associates in Alpharetta, Georgia. And she supports clients in the greater Atlanta area, as well as North Carolina and Florida. Tammy survived a divorce in 2013, and she understands how overwhelming this transition can be, particularly for those balancing multiple responsibilities such as a career, kids, and or aging parents. Tammy uses her personal experiences and financial expertise to assist others who want to move forward financially after divorce. She has an MBA from UNC Chapel Hill and a financial planning certificate from Emory University. And she holds an accredited asset management specialist designation, Series 7 and Series 66 securities licenses, as well as life and health insurance licenses. So her topic is going to be on post-divorce financial planning begins now, and it surely does. So Tammy, we are so excited to have you here, and I am going to give you the floor now.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start the presentation now. Awesome. So thanks for that introduction, Lisa. I am a financial advisor with Raymond James, and I do specialize in helping single women, working moms, and busy couples regain control over their financial lives so they can see a clearer path to financial independence. As Lisa mentioned, I have been divorced myself, and there's no doubt about it that it is an emotionally trying time. And in that vein, I'm going to try and help you get you started with a checklist of the most important post-divorce activities that can affect your new financial life. But first, before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about your assessing your current financial situation. Divorce thrusts us into an economic survival mode, and you may already feel financially insecure, and there's a range of emotions like self-doubt and confusion and resentment. And I remember myself being very overwhelmed, just sitting in front of the computer, looking at my bank accounts thinking, how in the world am I going to manage all of this? So the one thing I will tell you is will help to get organized. If you can get organized by gathering up all of your financial statements, your account bank statements, grab a notebook and start making lists. It's helpful to be realistic about making any major financial commitments. Try to wait for the first year until you get situated and you kind of know what your finances are going to be like in your new life. And then just be really honest with yourself. Take it slow. You may just need some time to kind of, grieve your old life and get used to, your new life. And we're going to dive into a checklist. So the main topic for the webinar is the checklist here. This is my money slide. So if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, go right ahead. In my opinion, the first item and the last item are the most important because the earlier that you can establish a budget, the more likely you can avoid pitfalls that many people face after divorce, such as running up credit cards or not saving for retirement. And then the last item, assemble your team. Don't feel like you have to go it alone. There are communities of divorce professionals out there from all kinds of industries, like the folks on this call that are here to help. And now we're going to dive right in with the first item on our checklist. So the most important place to start is to establish a budget, and a budget that reflects your current monthly income. Obvious income items are things like your salary, your wages, but also make sure that you include things like alimony and child support if you'll be receiving it. Then there comes your expenses. I tell my clients to categorize them into two buckets. You have your fixed expenses, which are going to be your things that are essential, like housing and food and transportation. Then you have things that are more discretionary. And I also advise my clients to kind of cut back on some of those discretionary items, entertainment, dining out, travel, just for a little while until you get situated in your new life. The important thing is to choose a budget system that works for you. It can be low tech. It can be a notebook with each month on a page. Or if you're a little more tech savvy, you might try the app Mint. The main goal of budgeting is just awareness. You need to be aware of your spending. And if you overspend 1 month, don't beat yourself up about it. Just manage your budget a little closer the next month. The next item on the checklist is really around protecting credit and controlling debt. This is one of the busiest slides that I have in the deck. And it's a pretty hot topic for most people that have gone through divorce, because divorce can have a negative impact on your credit rating. And a positive credit history is super important. It allows you to obtain credit when you need it and at lower interest rates. And a lot of times credit can be a factor in a prerequisite for employment. So some things to think about around your credit is making sure that you notify financial institutions of your divorce. Make sure you pull your credit report and make sure there are no inaccuracies on there, especially if you've had a name change or if you have joint accounts that have been dissolved. Also, I advise my clients to try and automate a lot of their monthly payments, and this will help you avoid late fees or missed payments. And then if you're trying to work down debt, one of the ways and strategies of doing that would be to pay off high interest debt first or pay off small balances first. A couple of things to avoid. Try not to make too many credit inquiries. Every time you open a credit card, it will hit your credit report, and it does work against you. Debt consolidation programs and refinancing programs might be attractive. They might help you short-term with cash flow. The one drawback is in the long run, you probably end up paying more to do a debt consolidation program. Try to avoid using a HELOC to pay off debt. This is where folks get into trouble, and if you default on a HELOC, that can also put your home in jeopardy, and you definitely don't want to put your home in jeopardy. And then finally, I know some folks who have had to file for bankruptcy, unfortunately, after a divorce just know that if this is a choice, that it will not impact your student loans, your taxes owed, or any types of domestic support obligations like child support and alimony. We're talking a lot about insurance needs on this webinar, so I won't go into great detail about this other than to say that be sure to notify your insurance companies of your divorce and make sure that you update all of your beneficiaries. Super important, you wouldn't want your ex-spouse to remain on your life insurance policy. And also just a quick word of caution too, to double check your insurance deductibles. One thing that you don't want to get caught with is having to file an insurance claim and not having enough cash to cover that deductible. If you're not comfortable with the level of your insurance deductibles, then I recommend to my clients that they reduce them to a level that's more affordable. Now we're going to get into some hot financial topics around resetting financial goals, which is super important. While you're married, you may have had certain goals with your former spouse, and now that you're on your own, things have likely changed and you may want to reprioritize those. You could, do you want to save more money for retirement? Or do you want to work on debt reduction? Maybe you want to go back to school, or you want to save for a big purchase like a car or a vacation or a home. So this is super important to be reflective about what things that you want to prioritize in your financial life. And once you have your priorities, that it's super important too to rebuild your financial plan. This is where the fun begins. Looking forward, your dreams and goals are probably different now. Your vision of retirement might be completely different, and certainly the path there is altered. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they don't start the process of rebuilding their financial plan immediately after divorce. If you wait 5 to 10 years after child support and alimony stop to start your plan, it can be much more difficult. And the first few years are really just transitional years, and it's a good time to tackle this head on. A couple of to-do items would be related to your financial plan. Make sure you, again, update your account ownership and beneficiaries. If you consolidate accounts, it will make your financial life much easier. As I mentioned earlier, make sure you save copies of your financial statements. And certainly a financial advisor can help, especially if you're dealing with retirement accounts or investment splits as it relates to your divorce. This can require a new account setup or transfers or rollovers, and these are things that a financial advisor can help you figure out. Updating your estate plan. You should consult with an estate attorney in order to update your will and final will and testament, your power of attorney, your living will, guardians and trustees if you have kids. Make sure that your former spouse isn't still named on any of these estate planning documents. You want to make sure, again, that your beneficiaries are updated and make sure that you've got all of your policies in order. Also, as it relates to your bank accounts and your life insurance policies, as I mentioned earlier. If you don't think you need an estate plan or don't think it's urgent, think again. If you want your assets to go to your loved ones and be protected when you no longer can, you need an estate plan. Without one, your heirs could face larger tax burdens, and the courts could designate where your assets are divided. They may even get to decide who raises your children. So trusts can also be a powerful tool for protecting your investments and ensuring that they are distributed as per your wishes. Tax consequences. There will be tax impacts as a result of your divorce. Did you know that your filing status is determined as of the last day of your tax year, December 31st? Child support and alimony are not considered taxable income. And if you have children, you may be eligible to claim certain credits and deductions. And again, just another reminder to reach out to the IRS to change your address and update your name if you've had a name change. And finally, one of the most important, assemble your team. Make sure that you ask for recommendations from people you trust. Do not ask the Google. There are communities of divorce professionals out there from all kinds of industries that specialize in helping you. Beyond your divorce lawyer, there are also real estate professionals, mortgage brokers, CPAs, counselors, insurance professionals like those on this call, and of course, financial advisors like me. And just my wrap-up slide. This is Rosie. She's a Humane Society puppy, and she says these are the important steps. Get organized and create a budget. Request a copy of your credit report. Change all of your beneficiaries, and don't feel like you have to go it alone. Build your team. Certainly reach out if you need support on your financial journey. Tammy Gruen from Raymond James.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Cute dog. Is that your puppy?
That is my puppy, Rosie.
Sweet Rosie. Well, you made a lot of really important points there. And as a certified divorce financial analyst, I can tell you that all of those things that you spoke about are critical. And I know we're talking about post-divorce, but some of those things we really want you to take a look at prior to your divorce, and especially things like credit reports and such like that, to see, are there any accounts that are left open that are joint names? We want to sever all your divorce debts along with your divorce, right? You want to divorce your joint debts along with your spouse, and checking those beneficiaries and things like that. So Tammy, we're so grateful that you're here and a member of our community, that you can help folks pre and post divorce to help them get through a lot of these questions and so many deep layers of things that affect people going through divorce. Today we're talking about protection, but this is just one of the layers, folks. We've got a lot of stuff that we cover here. And next we're going to talk with Deborah Wilder. And Deborah and I go way back as well. And she is a psychologist, divorce mediator, divorce consultant, and parenting coordinator who has worked with individuals, couples, and families in crisis for over 30 years. Before starting her private practice 27 years ago, she worked in a private psychiatric residential facility for children and adolescents, a college counseling center, a county mental health center, and in the VA Administration Medical Center, where she specialized in post-traumatic stress disorder and behavioral medicine. And she had the honor and privilege of working individually and in groups with veterans of the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and Desert Storm. Deborah's extensive professional experience, as well as her own personal experience with divorce, has helped her to become a trusted advisor for those individuals and couples at all stages of their lives and relationships. And Deborah, I'm so excited to hear you talk about mental health protection for you and your children. We talk a lot about protection of our finances and everything else, but we don't really think about protecting what goes on inside our mind. And that's really critical if you're going to make wise decisions through the process and afterwards. So Deborah, I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera, and I'm going to give you the floor. There we are.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. It's very nice to be here. And I have to comment on Tammy, your presentation was terrific. And I went through a divorce many years ago, and I looked at your list, and boy, I made a lot of mistakes. And it took me a long time to learn to kind of get my life in order in a number of different ways, especially financially. So it's definitely a challenge under normal circumstances for a lot of folks. And then going through divorce, it was an absolute challenge for me, the finances as well as some other things. And what I want to talk about today, we'll cover a little bit of all of these things briefly, but whether you've been married a year or 50 years, divorce has a tremendous impact on all areas of life. And it's really the death of the marriage. And so it's like grieving, but it's a little bit different, but you still go through the grieving process. And what I'd like to do is briefly go over some of the changes that divorce brings and some physical and emotional mental responses to those changes, some simple tips as far as how to cope and heal with some of these changes and helping understand what the kids go through based on their ages and helping to identify some specific questions or issues that they struggle with. So let me share some of the most common changes that divorce will bring. There's often a change in identity. There's a change in finances, changes in relationships and social life, and changes in responsibilities. So especially if you have children, becoming a single parent, that's a whole different ball game, and we can't get into that today. But that's a lot of change right then and there. And these changes from the loss of a marriage lead to physical responses as well as mental and emotional responses. So some of the physical responses when we deal with loss, we may have some shortness of breath or some chest pains. And at any point, if these get to be concerning, obviously you check with your doctor. Headaches, nausea, loss of appetite, fatigue, insomnia. We are also, because our stress level, when it goes up, it puts us in a more vulnerable position physically. So we may be more apt to get sick more often when we are under a stressful situation. And some of the emotional and mental things that we struggle with in dealing with loss, denial, numbness, sense of detachment. We may feel sad, angry, anxious, inability to concentrate. We may feel guilty. We might feel relief, which is a good thing. Hopelessness, confusion, helplessness, longing, and preoccupation. These are some very, very common mental and emotional responses to loss, especially as it happens with divorce. And there are a number of ways to cope with loss and dealing with the feelings that we have. And I'm just going to go through a list of some of these things to consider as you go through the loss of your marriage. It's important to give yourself permission to grieve. As I was saying before, divorce is the death of a marriage. It is a death. And so there is a grieving process, and we need to allow ourselves the time and the space to go through this. And we don't go from point A to point B to point C. We just kind of jump all over the place, and it can be chaotic, but it is very, very normal. Find outlets that feel right for you. Seek support from friends and family, support groups, and counselors if necessary. Focus on moving forward. You know, it's easy to look back and look at things, mistakes that we may have made or disappointments that we have, but try to be forward focused. Take care of yourself. It's important to get a physical. It's important to eat well and exercise and to try to get enough sleep. Also try to stay away from drugs and alcohol. We know that the immediate gratification feels good, but we pay a price often for that. Recognize that change, whether change is good or bad, is stressful or can be stressful, and maintain as much stability as you can, especially when you're making decisions. Try to make rational decisions rather than emotional decisions, because some of those emotional decisions can come and bite us in the rear end down the road. Set realistic expectations, prioritize, focus on constructive problem solving rather than the worry that really doesn't get us anywhere. Get help. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think, as we've all talked about today, there are a number of resources for any kind of issue. Avoid isolation. Focus on your strengths. Keep a sense of humor. Explore your interests. Sometimes divorce brings about opportunities to do things that you might not normally have done before, and believe that you can make positive changes in your life. It's also important to assess and reassess your expectations based on where you are in this divorce process. Do not overcommit yourself. Learn to say no. That's not always so easy. Strive to be a good person, not a perfect one. We are in a big change when we're going through a divorce, and there's a lot of pressure on us, especially from our children or being, again, a single parent, perhaps. Just do the best you can. Simplify your tasks and give yourself permission to take some time for yourself. So these are all some specific tips that you can use to help deal with the loss of a marriage. And while you're in the midst of doing all these things and just trying to keep your own head above water, you've got to deal with your children, of course, if you have children, and help them through as well. So some things to think about, really, three really important things to think about is, number one, kids often feel that they are responsible in some way for parents splitting up. They need to understand that there's nothing that they did that contributed to the parents' divorce, and there's nothing that they can do about it. There's nothing that they can do to bring mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad back together. There isn't. However, they may still feel like they have something to do with that. It's also very important for them to reassure them that they're loved and they're going to be taken care of. Another thing is to make sure that you keep any conflict away from your children. It's very easy to get into arguments or speaking negatively about the other parent, but you got to keep that conflict away from them as much as you can. It's also going to be important to try to anticipate, based on the kids' ages, what their experiences may be. And regardless of the age of the children, divorce is stressful anyway, but understanding how each child at a certain age may perceive divorce is going to be helpful. So let's start with preschoolers. And these are kids ages 3 to 5. And again, they often assume that they have something to do with their parents' divorce, and they don't. But they don't really understand the concept of divorce. What they do understand are simple concepts like who's going to take me to school, who's going to pick me up, who's going to take care of the dog, where am I going to sleep tonight? So these simple concepts the little kids can understand, but they can't necessarily understand the larger concept of divorce. And because of the self-blame that a lot of little kids have, they don't really understand that, again, that divorce has nothing to do with them, and they may regress in their behavior. So they may start wetting the bed again or having problems sleeping. And these are normal responses from kids. However, if they continue, this is where you want to consult with the professional just to try to get the kids back on track. Reading divorce books to them, articles to them that are age appropriate can not only help them understand more about what's going on in the world around them, but can help them understand a little bit more about what's going on inside of them. Next, we'll talk about the elementary aged kids. These are kids who are 6 to 12, and they do have a more realistic perspective about the reasons why their parents are divorcing. However, still at this age, they don't necessarily see themselves as distinct from their parents, which is an interesting thing. They haven't really formulated that concept of independence as the older kids do. And if one parent leaves the house, these kids might feel like a crucial part of them has just been like sliced away, but there is no visible scar. And they are confused about everything that's going on, and they really want to know why this is happening, but still not really conceptually understanding what's going on. You can give them an explanation without going into great detail. They may be angry and they may demand an explanation, and that's a discussion for another time. They're likely to be anxious about the future. They may be prone to depression, and they're likely to feel ashamed about their parents getting a divorce. So something else to be aware of with these kids. A lot of feelings going on. There is a risk that the kids' school grades will go down, and kids who are ages 9 to 12 sometimes might be prone to a little more behavioral expression of their emotions. So they may get in trouble, or they may act out or behave in ways that they didn't behave before the divorce was announced. Maintaining as much open communication with them is very, very important, and structure and routine. With any age, structure and routine is going to be helpful to these kids. Young adolescents, these are the kids who are 13 to 16. At this age, they're often thinking about their identity and figuring out their own levels of independence, and their bodies are growing, their hormones are active. And these kids are more aware of sexual issues and dating. And they generally want to spend more time with their friends, not necessarily with their parents. They are more aware of money at this age. And so they might be a little bit more concerned about how the divorce is going to affect them financially. At this age, they ask more questions about their parents' divorce. It's important to keep the lines of communication open. It's also important not to speak negatively about the other parent. To be as neutral as you can is going to be helpful here. Kids of this age are also watching you. They're going to watch you, especially when you're around people of the opposite sex or the same sex, if their parents were in a same-sex marriage. They're aware, and they're paying more attention than you may know. Again, their development hormonally, they may be all over the place, and being stressed is not going to help. They may be disappointed in you. This is something, again, that's developmentally appropriate for kids to be more aware of how their parents are acting. However, it stings a lot more. I will tell you from my own experience, getting a divorce when my kids were little, they will tell me when they're disappointed in me, or they would tell me, flaws or faults. And I kind of had to learn to listen and to pay attention, and it didn't make me feel good. And going through divorce is tough enough, but when you hear your kids' perspectives of you, at times it can sting a lot more. Older adolescents, these are kids who are 16 to 19. They're testing the limits of their own independence, and they tend to rely on their friends for information and support. These kids will often have one parent, not the enemy, but they're angry at one parent. And these kids are also very vulnerable to parent alienation, which is another topic, a very, very important one. But these kids are very sensitive, especially to what parents say about each other. And if it's negative, that's a problem. Sometimes these children will try to fill in the role of a parent. You've probably all heard that, let's say the oldest male in the family might say, well, he's now the man of the house. This is not good. It's good for the kids to be mature and to learn responsibility, but not for a child to feel that he or she is an adult now and the adult of the house. It's up to the parents to take care of the kids. It's not the kids' responsibility to take care of the parents. Because of all the emotions that these kids are feeling, it's important to keep boundaries, but respect their growing independence. But be on the lookout for behavioral issues and emotional withdrawal. These kids may act out sexually. They may abuse substances. These are things, again, common responses that kids this age will do. So just be on the lookout for this kind of behavior or withdrawal. They may be struggling with depression, anxiety, or loneliness. And so to be aware of these things and offer support and let the kids know that whatever the kids need, you're there for them and you will get whatever support for them that they need. Regardless of the age, communication is so important. I heard somewhere, and it makes a whole lot of sense, that reaction is by default. Response is by design. And when we listen to our children, especially when we're in the midst of our own pain, it's kind of hard sometimes not to be reactive. So we need to learn to respond to what the kids are telling us. Even if we don't want to hear it or we don't like what they're saying, we need to learn to respond to the children and not react so much. So basically, bottom line is going through a divorce, you're in the middle of a tunnel. There isn't a light at the end of the tunnel. And the more knowledgeable you are, the more information that you have and the more support that you have going through the tunnel, by the time you get to the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, your health is going to be much better, as well as the health of your children. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. That was fabulous. And I love that last quote. Could you repeat that again? I think it's so valuable.
Yes, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. But reaction is by default. Response is by design. And it really, really makes a difference when we're working on with any kind of relationship or anything to not be so reactive, that we need to work on being responsive. And that's a big challenge for a lot of us under a lot of different circumstances.
Yes, I agree. And it does apply across the board, jobs, neighbors, just the way of the world right now. So I love that quote. That's terrific. And thank you for so many great tips. I know we have a few questions in the box, but I want to ask you one before we get started. And that is, what about adult children? Because I've had a lot of experiences where adult children are highly affected by their parents' divorces. And many times they become very controlling and trying to, tell mom and dad what to do or picking sides. And it can be very difficult with adult children as well.
You are absolutely right. And there's been a lot of research done on adult children's responses to divorce. I think sometimes parents, as the kids get older, tend to rely on their children, their adult children, as peers. And so sometimes they get the children involved in things, and it's kind of hard to separate. But sometimes older children are also, they see more. They're more aware of the dynamics between the parents, and then they also might be more protective of one parent or the other. Some kids are relieved when their parents are getting divorced. I've heard responses like, well, it took you long enough. What'd you wait so long for? And others are shocked. Divorce also makes a difference based on the ages of the children. I don't remember specifics, but on kids' ideas of commitment and relationships. as well as their own beliefs in marriage. Because let's say you're an adult child and your parents have been married for 50 years and then they get a divorce. You know, it can be kind of shocking.
Sure.
So you're absolutely right. It does make a difference all around at any age.
Well, thank you. I'm going to let Marcella speak up here. Marcella is my fabulous assistant that any of you that have worked with me personally know, and those of us, who are members of Divorcetown, also get to enjoy this relationship with this most amazing woman in my life. So, Marcella, why don't you go ahead and ask the questions here?
Nope, I'm trying to make me cry before I ask the questions. We do have a couple really, really good questions. One in particular was during the financial presentation, someone asked, when it's a gray divorce, do you have any different or extra advice that might apply in that situation?
I would say the closer you are to your retirement, there's probably some extra reviews that you would want to do as far as your retirement calculations and making sure that you're on track. So it's just gray divorce to me would mean somebody that's much further along in their career and much closer to wanting to be financially independent. So I think then, we would probably spend more time talking about retirement and calculations and getting back on track.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. Most of my clients are gray divorce, and I usually work as a financial neutral. So, which is, someone who works as a neutral party between couples. And this is a phenomenon that was founded by a couple of sociologists who did a study out of Bowling Green University and dubbed it the gray divorce phenomenon. And it's actually the largest segment of the population that is divorcing now. And there are a lot of critical differences for people who are gray divorce. They tend to have a lot more assets, more complicated assets, potentially pension plans, other types of qualified funds that can be more complicated, executive compensation issues, more equity in their home, many times extra properties, businesses may be involved. So these cases do tend to be a lot more complicated and need much more delving into their financial matters.
Thank you, both of you. Anybody else? I muted everybody. There was a little bit of feedback, so feel free to jump in if you have anything else. All right, so the next question. Tammy, you had talked a lot about post-divorce financial planning, but you mentioned assessing your financial situation. When in the divorce process should you care about assessing your financial situation?
Before, during, and after, depending on your situation. I think one of the challenges of people who are in an active divorce is you don't always know the outcome. And so trying to plan for, alimony, child support, and those things that you don't know, or the splitting of the assets, a lot of times you're kind of in that suspended animation for a little while. So it's always, things are easier once all of those things are known. But I would say you need a budget regardless of what point in the process you're at. Because controlling your expenses and having awareness of where you're spending money is super important as you go through this time, because it's huge financial impact.
Absolutely. I'll piggyback again, since we're the financial folks here. I like to call it the smart start. Start smart, and that means that you understand. Start early. And you manage your emotions through the process early on. You assess your options, because you do have them. And there are other videos and other webinars that we've done on that. And that's one of the most critical pieces of getting the right divorce for you. Topic for another day again. And then reach out for help, because this is not a time to do it alone or be alone. And divorce takes a team. So there is the SMART acronym, but starting early is the first one. Even before the word divorce comes out of your mouth, you should be starting to look at your financial matters, gathering whatever data you can. Hopefully you'll be able to have an amicable, civilized divorce with your spouse. But in some cases, that's not possible, and documents can disappear, and then it gets very difficult to find them, to track them down. You may have to pay to subpoena them if you know about them at all. So early as possible.
Excellent. And we do have another question. I know this was addressed in another one of our webinars, which was age progression of parenting plans, where you design a parenting plan understanding that children are going to grow. And so Dr. Deborah, you did really helped us to break down the different needs of the different age groups. And I think that will help parents to keep that in mind when they're developing a parenting plan going forward. But we did have someone in the webinar today mention about how parents talk to each other during this process and resolving issues before they become problems. Do you have any advice on how you might accomplish that? Or
yeah, so often I'll recommend and whatever a couple can do, as much as figuring out themselves what they agree to before they even come into mediation or work with attorneys or anything like that, the more that they can do on their own and the more that they decide together, the more compliant they will each be with their own decisions. Obviously, getting a divorce doesn't usually make people talk better or make conversations more productive. So to be able to do that, as with as little emotion, I suppose, as possible. I also recommend getting a template of what a parenting plan looks like. Reading articles, reading books about different custody arrangements, depending on how old the kids are. I've worked with new moms, and the kids are like very, very new and itty bitty. And so you're not going to have a week on, week off with a newborn versus the kids who are older. And sometimes we talk about step up agreements, and we discuss these things. I'm not an attorney, but in mediation, we talk about options. And, the attorneys are the ones who can guide them in this way. But as far as trying to work out as much as possible between the two of them, understanding, obviously, the most important thing is what's best for the kids. And sometimes talking to different professionals and trying to figure out, based on the ages, based on the dynamics of the parents, based on the health of the parents, the emotional stability of the parents and the resources, that can just make a big, big difference. So there's not a generic answer, but to start off with understanding what is a parenting plan and understanding what custody means, the different kinds of custody, and what some options may be that may be best for the children.
Excellent. Thank you. We've gotten a few more questions coming in now. Quick question, financial question. Is opening an IRA good for gaining back some of your retirement?
So when I work with a lot of my divorce clients, building back retirement is super important coming out of a divorce. And I usually counsel people to start small. So if you have the willingness to save, even if it's $100 a month or $50 a month, even if it's something small, open the account and get it started and set it up as an automatic deposit so that it comes out every month, and get in the habit of doing that. And as you start to be more comfortable in your new financial life and you start to get a handle on things, maybe you can increase that over time. But yes, I think opening an IRA and starting the saving process is super important, even if it's a very small amount.
Excellent. Thank you. This question is about mediation. If you're dealing with a cheating spouse, can you still trust the mediation process? This person would like to keep the process less adversarial, but obviously doesn't want to be foolish.
Well, yeah, you can trust the process. That doesn't mean you trust the person, but it's a good start. And so with mediation and just divorce, you want to have as much information out there in front of you as possible. The mediator, I think, should be sensitive to feelings of betrayal. And I was just talking with someone this morning. Sometimes, we may tend to be referees rather than discussion partners. But yeah, certainly when infidelity is a part of a relationship and is a big contributor to divorce, trust is very, very difficult to feel when you're trying to end a marriage. So it's possible absolutely to trust the process, but that doesn't mean you have to trust the other person.
I'd like to follow up with that as well. There are other processes as well, working with a financial neutral. This is another process where you trust the process and you trust the neutral party that you're working with. And they're not there to represent either of you. They're there to help you through the process and understand what you own, what you owe, and what may be owed to you. And there's an agreement among the parties that everyone will provide documentation. And if it's not happening, then, you will have to go to attorneys and go through the traditional litigated route. But when people understand about their different options and what those routes look like, even if we've got someone who has had infidelity, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be trusted through this process this way. There's also things like the Amicable Divorce process, another organization that I partner with. And here, you have all the same legal rights and there can be full discovery, but it's all about keeping it amicable and not blowing up the case to spend unnecessary fees. So, getting with the right professionals who can advise you can help you feel comfortable that you are not making mistakes, even if you don't trust your spouse through what's happened in your marriage.
Excellent. Thank you both. And we have two more quick questions. One question was, how do you ask for assets for succession planning in the divorce process?
I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that. If you can clarify that.
Okay.
Tammy, yeah, I'm not sure. I see you shaking your head too. We need
so
a little more.
If you can clarify who asked that question, what do you mean by succession planning in the divorce process? Maybe if you can just clarify that question a little bit, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
I did have, there's one more question about when parents live in different countries. Do you have any suggestions on how they share the vacations?
I think that would probably need to be worked out among the parenting plan and with the attorneys or mediator. Deborah, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That's adding another element of discussion and trying to figure out what that looks like. And again, all sorts of pieces to that puzzle. But yeah, that's something that adds it sort of elevates, takes it out of the realm of something typical.
I would say also that you want to make sure that you have an attorney representing you who understands international law. I am aware of cases where children have been taken out of the country and then, a lot of legal expense and harangue to try to get children back. So you really want to make sure that you have somebody who understands that in depth and can protect your children and your rights as a parent to make sure that your children come back to them.
Very good. I agree. One other thing was going back to the financial question. It's succession planning, assets to be covered for the business without selling the business. So we're talking about a business split.
Okay. I work with business valuators as a part of what I do, and that's just, a piece of the puzzle that we put together. We're looking at all aspects of the business. Should it be sold or should one party buy out the other? And if there are partners involved, what does that look like? This is a very complicated matter and not easy to answer in any one way here. I think it's going to depend on the business, the type of business, and really what you're trying to accomplish. So are you trying to have succession planning for your children after the divorce, or for some other family members? There's a lot more that goes into this and can be answered in one question here. Tammy, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, certainly the quality of the information coming out of the subpoenas and making sure that you have everything, all of the info is pretty critical. I know that I've had one client, the husband was the one managing the business, and she was really struggling to get information out of him in order to do a split. So certainly the most important thing is making sure that you have all of the information on the table and one party's not holding back on that, where you don't have visibility to make good decisions, like Lisa was saying.
That's a good point as well. And I will follow up and say that a lot of people, just like they think of traditional litigation where you each lawyer up and then duke it out to get to the finish line, you do not have to each hire a business valuator. You can hire a neutral business valuator who can come in and go through all of the process. And it is very in-depth, and it depends on the type of asset, the type of business and such, how much they're going to have to dig in and the amount of documentation. But you can use one neutral party and save a lot of money. And then if you don't agree with that, you can always go out and each of you hire another. I always try to get people to start with the most reasonable process moving forward. Hire the best professionals that you can find and that you trust, and then allow them to do their work properly and be a proactive partner, not a passive participant in anything in your life, whether it's your health or your wealth matters. And that's how you're going to get the best outcome. You're going to understand the questions to ask, the pros and cons and the consequences of each of your choices. And you'll feel better about it when you get to the other side, because you will be informed. And so, Marcella, do we have any final questions here today?
One final question really quickly. Someone who was just able to log on. Husband has moved out. Neither one has filed, but open enrollment is coming up and she's currently on his insurance. She said, do I have any protections if I haven't filed for divorce yet? He's verbally agreed to keep her on the insurance. Any suggestions, since haven't started the process yet, and where she might be at risk?
Bob, you're muted.
Sorry, I muted everyone. Apologies.
There you go. So, I think the answer there is because they haven't, completed the process, then she can still stay on the plan. Certainly with COBRA, she does not have to notify a plan administrator until the actual divorce is final or the legal separation. So I don't think she's at risk, of staying on the plan, certainly as long as the spouse, the husband, is agreeable to that, and they continue to pay their premiums. I think she's okay. Once the legal separation or divorce is filed, she has a special election period where she can get health insurance. So I think that's the answer.
So in essence, Bob, they don't have to worry if they miss open enrollment, because a divorce opens up a special enrollment period, correct?
Exactly. That SEP, there are a number of SEPs, but certainly divorce, legal separation is an SEP. So that umbrella of open enrollment, they have an ongoing open enrollment with that SEP.
Great. And I'll add one more thing to that, and before we finish, and that is, when your divorce or your legal separation is final and you've got the paperwork, you've got 60 days to notify the plan administrator if you want to go on COBRA, or to then go to the open marketplace and apply for a plan. So don't let that 60-day window pass, because then your special enrollment period is no longer available. And
Lisa, just one thing with the fixed benefit plans, the short-term plans, the indemnity plans, there is no open enrollment defined period. It's open throughout the year, 365 days out of the year.
Okay. So there's another option for you if you do miss it, but keep your options open. Make sure you're meeting your timeframes. All right, folks, this has been a very lively webinar today. We're so grateful to all of our professionals who are here today sharing this very important information with you, who are members of our community, who are out there looking to serve you and help you through this very trying time. We are here for you. Reach out to any of us through divorcetownusa.com, and we'll be happy to see how we can assist. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you so much for attending today.
Bye now.